Right. All right. Hello. Hmm. Do you know what? Do you? The thing is, the thing is, I have to tell you, it hasn't actually been so long since I published something or broadcasted something in this channel or on this channel. Sorry. But what I am trying to tell you now is that we have another weekend morning. So the show is going to be a little bit different. We have been talking about and exchanging ideas about how to present a real expose on Noctis Chaotix, and I published three videos on that subject. But as you know, it's a bit come and go, on again, off again kind of a topic. And I actually played the game yesterday, and what I realized is that one must get used to with the heights to reach, the slopes to get past, the maze-like level design. One must learn that one should not get frustrated. Go in for the feeling regardless if you win or not in the game. You have to go there for the experience. And this is something I will discuss in a way that it's befitting for a game like that, but it's not to be on a good morning show. So you can click on to see those kind of clips because I published three of them so far. But now I'm gonna think about what's the aim for today. As a good morning show, we have to be a bit more varied and not so specialized into just one thing. Because the mornings are nice. If you get up early like I do, you have a lot of time to, try many different things. And it's totally worth it to go up early to have those hours where one can spend the time we have to, be a little creative. Creative is always nice to be, but it's just that people do not care for mornings. I mean, most people don't care for mornings for some reason, and I don't know why it's like that. Like the focus for today, if you want to know, is that yes, it's like if you want to know the general idea of mm, the general idea of what we can think about the all being infinite and universal. Oh yeah, we're into this discussion because I'm currently taking up reading this book again. And you know it since before? Dialogues concerning natural religion from David Hume. It's as they say, it's an interesting, inspiring philosophical inquiry and a literal gem. We had it on B level uh, philosophy at the Theological Institute in Lund, and it's written kind of like a dialogue. If you're familiar with how um, texts composed by Plato were organized. So this is I think it's interesting because you know there are many things that are interesting in this indeed. Uh, but the main issue is how they have created here three fictional characters entering a piece of speech of their own, One person has a very skeptic position. One person believes that there is a, you know, cause for everything. And then there's one person who is, yeah, we can realize the fact that God exists, but what is he like? And then we discuss the general terms of divine attributes, as we do in Shiism as well. We have 99 attributes for God there. Nevertheless, if you want to know anything about religious philosophy, university level, um, the thing is that a book like that, this book, I've used it in one of my, you know, I am writing a book on religious philosophy myself, so I had to quote David Hume in some aspects, like, yeah, in what way can we feel this attachment to God? In what way are we dependent on God? Is God really active in the world, or has He just created the world? You know, those questions are, yeah, they're important. Like you don't see much of them today, as I take it. Modern writers. The thing with David Hume is that he wrote it as it was a dialogue. Uh, Pronounced by different people, which makes it, as I say, it's a literal gem, but sometimes it affects you as a reader because you will be affectionate towards what some of them are saying, and you will misunderstand what some of them are saying. And but this is the style of the writing. There was a purpose related to that, and that purpose has to do with the fact that the author here, David Hume, wants to make you think big time. So, what is really going to happen here? We know that this book is a very essential part of the actual. It's a textbook in the course that I attended, and it's just, you know, it is about faith and belief and other worldviews on the way, which are not related to theology. We were comparing some of them, existentialism, for instance, and man, it is interesting because as I work within the clergy, I need to learn to study things that are not all Shiism. I mean, there are other worldviews apart from Shiism, but as we think about Shiism, we think that it's the most optimal, the perfection of all kind of religion. So the thing is, we're discussing that, and thinking about David Hume, it's an important book to read to learn new things. But it's also a very amusing read because of the style. The style is likened to Plato, as I said, but it's still not the same. I mean, David Hume does his own thing, so that you shouldn't, when you think about things like that, you shouldn't only be considering that there is one way to write about things. There are many ways, and that's what we see the literal gem that is the dialogues concerning natural religions. We know this is a it's considered a classic. But as you know, if you studied philosophy before, this is not the first time uh, David Hume goes into the field of discussing what is the cause of things happening. How does it logically, how does it pronounce itself in a logical way? It's not always easy to tell, but these are the things, kind of things that he was studying in his time. And the language is beautiful. I mean, there are some maybe structures in the setup of sentences, and then there is vocabulary. So if you're not into that kind of books, it might be a little bit difficult to start with. But it's not a large book. It's just I will have a look at that. It's just, I think, 90 pages. So it's a little bit longer than I actually remember it, but it's a good read. And if you don't feel like it right now, you don't have to read all of it. But there's a presentation before the chapter start that I remember as being good. Um, and I can't tell you now about the things that I've been working on in terms of what you see in my book because it's in Swedish most of the part. I mean, there are some, in the notes, one English note, in note in Greek. There are things like that's because we're discussing the Quran, the New Testament, books like that. So there are many ways to go into this into introductionary piece of work that David Hume did. But there is also many other ways to look about the meaning of life. So this is not the only way, but it's a well presented way. Dower Publications Philosophical Classics. All right. So this is what I was trying to tell you earlier on, that there should be some awareness related to that. That this is not a once upon a time engagement. It's a historic book, but it's still very apt. They deal with things that are still important here, and natural religion is and natural theology is a very important subject, and it's a very amusing subject because it has to do with how you as a person can react to understanding the reality of God and the concepts of God in different traditions, because it has about, I mean, it makes you think, and that's the point of it, really. Yeah, Sartre was a bit like that as well. Sartre was a bit like that, but he is not he makes no implications concerning metaphysical realities because they can't be seen. Uh, from bottom to top, he was a materialist, so to speak. Um, but he has been writing many interesting arguments as well. We haven't been reading him as much as we did David Hume, but both of them are interesting in some way. And then again, speaking about interesting people, you know that I was online browsing, and I found out that I think I was browsing for Puzzle Bubble or Bubble Bobble, I don't know. But the thing is that I found that there was one game that was exclusive only to Japanese Saturn and arcade. Arcade first and foremost, but then Japanese. And this was Bubble Symphony. And it happened. I just pressed for it and found that it was rare. And I contacted a shop over in Stockholm that import things. If you go ask for what you're looking for, they import it for you. All right, so I realized this Bubble Symphony was a interesting game. I didn't really see much of the actual game, but I saw the scene, the entry scene, pointing out like this is ladies and gentlemen. This is Abal Symphony. And with that, this wee dragoon, whoever, when this wee dragon came out and said, "This is ladies and gentlemen," I knew I needed to have that game. And it was like, I'd never heard about it before at all. Although I know Bubble Bobble was on Commodore 64 and 8-bit Nintendo. All right, so then I realized I must get the game, and I was just worried because it took a few days before they could answer my email, and I thought, oh man, they're never going to find it. Oh, but they did, and it arrived yesterday. I haven't tried it yet. But I'm really looking forward to playing it because it's like that the other game. But I mean, the splendor of all the color and I mean, that introduction video, man, I was sold straight away. It's just it's I, I I'm being honest here. I just can't tell you. there's just all those things related to how I would like to see things is true because I mean, Bubble Symphony is one of those games. If you're suffering affective disorder, if affective disorders, and if you're facing having a battle out with depression, anxiety, this is the kind of games you can really enjoy. And as I understand, it's not far away from in gameplay. It's not far away from the original Bubble Bobble. But there was a game, there was a Bubble Bobble Rainbow Islands 2-in-1 set for Sega Saturn as well. And maybe that was the game I was looking for. It was Puzzle Bubble. But then again, this game I decided to get it first because it's a game. It's a game that you shouldn't be expecting too much because it's fairly. I mean, the programming seems fairly straightforward, and it was on the top 50 list of top Path Gaming Man Japanese releases for Sega Saturn. It was on the list. It wasn't really high up in the list, but I don't know how he measures how does he stipulate what is important for a game, what makes a game great. Um, Everybody, when they talk about Sega Saturn, they tend to be very excited and empathic towards the gaming ideas in Dragon Force and Dragon Force 2. I have seen the Sega Flash demo of that game, but as the time has gone by and the game has become more and more pricey, I was thinking about it, and I don't have the strategic RPGs. Well, it's fine, but it's not like I have the I don't really have the time or patience to go into that kind of game. I like playing, as I said, more straightforward kind of titles with some tricky dynamics in there. But I have arcade classics as well, like Space Invaders. And before I didn't have a fully working Saturn, so I wasn't playing it much. But now when it is working, I would like to take up playing Space Invaders again because when it comes to all the titles I own, one of the games that I'm really, really happy I have in my collection is Space Invaders because it's easy to get into it, yet it's tricky and you get the challenge out of it. I mean, it is this is a CD based version, so there are colors in the backgrounds, which is not exactly 1977. I think this is 1997, so it's not exactly a port from the arcade or Atari, but it's the basic idea of the game is there. Use the direction button and one button to shoot, and that's basically it. And that's why I think it's going to be great to play it again because it's so easy to get into. Sometimes it's too challenging. You can't even get a good high score, even if you try. You have shields in front of you, but you need to keep moving to be able to reach the Space Invaders. Otherwise, you can't attack them when they attack you. But don't be aggressive. I mean, you wait out the situation that you're in and the right time to like handle a battle. This is really good. It's like I would like to have asteroids again, but it's like I don't have asteroids um, related to this. I have Dark Side, which is a 3D kind of asteroids, and I love that game, even though I think it's difficult. I never completed a mission because I'm too slow, and I have problem using the navigating system to find the asteroids that I had to shoot and the spaceships that arrive out of nowhere, flying saucers and things like that. One has to be ready for it, and it's sometimes I'm just not ready for it. Then apart from that, the album we are listening to today will be this album. It's Supergrass' third album. It doesn't really have a name, but they call it the X-Ray album because of the cover. It was released on Parlophone, but they are not on Parlophone anymore, and they're actually split. But I mean, their records are released by the Echo label now. It seems I bought one of the reissues in Digipack, and that wasn't scratched like my original copy. The game was the album is called Life on Other Planets from 2002, the fourth album, but this is the third album, and in fact, as a matter of fact, I think this is the best album ever made, especially within the pop genre. I don't know if it's better than Salieri or better than Yusuf Islam's devotional works, but in terms of pop, this is the best album I've ever heard, because I bought it when it was new and I couldn't really get into it as a album. It wasn't the singles only, and for me, well, it happened then in fifth, sixth grade. We were getting to learn about 50s music, 60s music, 70s music, 80s music, and we were like, I was introduced to the Birds. I have all their albums. I was introduced to the Beatles. I have some of their albums, but I was getting frustrated by the fact, how some late 60s releases by the Beatles are interesting experiments, but they are not fully serving as albums, but they're still interesting. Like most of the recordings by Beatles are like that. They're interesting even when they were actually in the right element during the up and get up and go kind of style before they became a pop phenomenon, when they were still a rock band playing the Hamburg scene sound. When they were a backing band for their teacher and the mentor, Tony Sheridan, so that. But then there were, different releases from late 60s, mid 60s, which are not at all like those first EPs and singles that they made under Bert Kempfert. So I like that, the direct enthusiasm related to early 60s recordings. But when I decided to listen, when I decided to, I was tired about finding interesting experiments. I would have liked to find something new. And then I realized one day, man, I have to listen to the full album of this X-Ray album kind of thing. The thing is that I did it, and it was like many years ago in the early noughties. I mean, this was uh, when it was still a pretty new album, and I reviewed it for Amazon in 2002 or 2003, saying, "Is this the best album ever made?" Actually, it is the best album ever made, and it's just because you know how Supergrass, they got all the time, they've got all the types. I mean, they had all the types of dynamics in their sound. They could play everything, and without sticking out too much from the crowd, they offered what they could in a wholehearted kind of way, and especially on this third album because it's a bit mellow, but it has beautiful structures. There's use of harpsichord together with regular pop instruments, which is I mean, it's not Remo, it's not harpsichord musicals. In that sense, but it's like baroque pop, some kind, nifty details, and I mean that's just great. From What Went Wrong in Your Head, for instance, it's an amazing presentation, and I mean the fifth track, the middle of the fifth track, the fifth tune is Shot Over Heel, and it's about finding a place where to belong, and it enters with backwards rhythm guitar, which might have been inspired from Younger Than Yesterday or Revolver, but I mean, it's more. The thing with Supergrass compared to those groundbreaking groups is that Supergrass, they make everything work. I mean, they made everything work. They're not active anymore, but they made everything work, and that's why you can come back to this album time and time again in so many ways. It's like you can't even imagine, because you don't even understand it the first time you hear it. It's like you have to digest the entire album like a fully served meal. And I mean, I love all the Supergrass albums, but this is definitely their best. And I have many of the singles as well with interesting B-sides, and that's interesting too. But I mean, what's really interesting is that this album works on all levels. It's not just catchy, it's not just groovy. I mean, it's got a fine flow all the way. I can't buy a t-shirt to impress or my friends. Far away, what a good tune. All of the songs are really good. I mean, Mama and Papa, when we have that in the end, it's just, it's sublime, as they say. And they have singles from this region as well somewhere. Some on vinyl and some on maxi maxi CD with 4 or 5. And if you like it, you should love like the you should be loving the Gay Dad debut album because it's got dynamic melodies and reflective lyrics in the same way, sometimes intricate, sometimes subdued, but really, sometimes with humor as well. It's a witty group. As with Gay Dad, it was released in 1999, and that's the best year of music according to me. You have to see for yourself before I can tell you, but if you go to rateyourmusic.com, I have published a serious review there, a long one actually. So there is many things to go into if we start to discuss the foundations of this record. Apart from that, as you know, there are reasons to keep on playing um, Knuckles Chaotix, but one needs to be able to do it without frustration because when there is uh, a steep uh, slope to go past or a platform that is out of reach, you have to find which is the right way to go. And maybe it would have been better if I play games that are not subject to the issue that one is being timed when playing. Because if one gets stuck in an obstacle or there are many enemies and you think you have to press on, that I mean you should always press on in gaming, but you need to be careful as well. So I find having a time limit in those kind of puzzle related games is not, it's just not, something is out of order with that thinking about it. I remember I told you about ways that I actually have sold now to Gothenburg. I had it for years and years and years, and I couldn't even complete the first level because it's, I mean, finding your way in this, what they call, I don't know what it means, is isometric. Uh, anyway, so it's a above above from the sky view, above from the sky view, where you see your character running about. It's very close to what Sonic 3D looks like, but the gameplay, because of this time issue, the gameplay in Wiz ruined ruined everything for me. I mean, at first when I got that game, I couldn't say no to that face, a rabbit with a wizard's hat, magician's hat. I think there are many things to say in this field because there are many things to get on to. But Wiz is not just interesting for me anymore because the time element killed everything that was great about it. Oh well, I won't be talking too much today. Well, I will, but not right now. I'm trying to narrow it down to which are the most interesting things to tell you. But I have one more thing to tell you because of um, because of what I was thinking about earlier, recordings and mixings and releases. There are many different releases and many versions of the same albums. And again, I'm going into talking about one of those older releases. I mean, 90s is also old, but I'm going back to more experimental 2060s kind of dawn of the pop movement. And I will show you something now. Just hang on for a minute, and I will indeed will take something on for you to think about why it is important. You have to see to it that you are not afraid of trying. This is what I found earlier on. I wanted to use via Discogs, all right? And when it comes to Discogs, what I wanted to tell you is this is the Capitol albums, uh, volume one from mid '60s releases by the Beatles with a combination of easy listening kind of albums, and those kind of albums are known for having their individual look. This is the actual booklet, but other than that, I will show you. Wait for a moment. That is, see what, so this is, as you might have been aware, this is a boxed set. I will try to show you. I will try to show you what it looks like. If you look into it, it's like everything is there. So these are. This is not only. This is not only a re-release. The actual importance with this release is that they are not like newly remastered in saying they're trying to make it sound different. The US albums that was in the books, the US albums which in a box that have a book with it, that series um, are based on a different kind of mastering. And some of the albums post 65 are not released uh, are not released here because this is a box that ends with uh, ends, as I understand it, ends in 1965. So there are 8 albums in total from that are based on the tapes that Capitol had. The songs have their own playing order, but not only that, they have enhancements to make alternative versions for people who wanted to get into the sound, and that's a lot of reverb and echo kind of duophonic recordings that they are separated and endorsed monocuts that sound a bit like stereo, even though it's duophonic only. Some people call it fake stereo, but I think that's an offensive term to use about such an interesting idea. When it comes to see, the focus is different here because there are some unique. I mean, yeah, there are unique mixes on the US album releases as well. I have some of them. I haven't bought the entire box, but I have some of them in meaning that there are unique mixes. But the basic foundation of the US albums release are not the US tapes. The tapes used for that to start over with was the basic foundation of the 2009 releases that I don't even own. So if one gets the Capitol albums, Volume 1, one will have to see that in retrospect, there is something really interesting with these releases because the alternative mix is made for that purpose, to make them more easy listening. It's interesting how they assembled albums together, not really caring about anything other than making it easy listening. So what I'm telling you about here is that there are 4 albums over here: Meet the Beatles, Beatles' second album, Something New, and Beatles 65, where I think Beatles 65 is probably the best mix. It has those rockabilly style songs, it has some pop melodies, but it's still really putting emphasis on a more polished version of the Get Up and Go drive that was in the intriguing All In It for Rock and Roll Polydor releases, their first recordings. But then, and it's not very experimental. This is like a staple food release for pop and rock and roll, but a bit more polished than what we are known. All of us that focus on the pre-EMI, the pre-Ringo, whatever recordings, who has Beatles Pop Hamburg Days, who has From Hamburg to London, has the earliest BBC recordings in Manchester, and so on. We know that the sound is a bit different, but it's still interesting in this Capitol version because they emphasize different aspects of the sound and different choices for playing orders in how the how, work. Now, what I'm saying is that maybe you do not believe that these are important releases because maybe you've already heard most of the songs, but have you heard them in these versions? You have to look it up. I don't know. You don't have to be a music nerd to like it. I like it because it's interesting the way it's mixed and how it sounds, because I like mixing and producing myself when I have the time, when I have the strength, when everything is in order. But what I was trying to tell you from early on is that uh, this the part 2 Capitol box has been very hard to find for most people. But I had enough with paying via PayPal for used records. I actually scrapped my credit card possibilities because I wanted to plan my economy better to get releases like this. And I have done it now in the sense that you could be aware that I found the volume 2 from Groovesland in Germany. They had it in stock. And I sent international payment via my bank to their account. No invoice costs, no charging cost on PayPal, nothing. And I knew I had the money for this release. And I don't know when it will be gone from the stock exchange. You have to be looking into it later on if you're a music, if you're interested fan. I'm not saying these are the best albums ever made. Supergrass third album is the best album ever made, but it is important to tell anyone that if you like to compare how things are mixed and recorded, if you are familiar with the Beatles canon, you might not even be interested in this area. You might be interested in the experimental area or the early days of All In for Rock and Roll area, but it doesn't really matter. It's an interesting experience to be able to have them at home, because the US albums, bit by bit releases, are not in the actual box set, but I bought them some of them one by one. That's also interesting, but it's a different thing. That has new unique mixes for that release, but it's not the original album remastered because it's the same cover and the same set of songs, but all the mixes are not the same. There was a choice to make a new version there because everyone weren't happy with the extra reverb and did not think it sounded professional. I'm not the one kind of guy to say that sort of thing. I think the alternative mixes made for the US market makes the North American market, sorry, the North American market makes it more interesting. But then again, I also ordered a box with the 5 albums that were unique in design from Japan that was released the same year as the US album box. And well, it wasn't really that expensive. Well, it was expensive, but then again, you get more than one record. You get the booklet. You get the setup with everything to be happy about, and it will be interesting for me to see. And I can't always be playing computer games and working. I need to do other things. So I have a lot of reviews published at Reiki Music. So if you really want to see them, you can head because my name is John Ferreiro Taravos and the username is John Ferreiro, just like it is here. So it's a very, I mean, if you like it, you can go looking for it. I have done a list, of my favorite 60s albums, my favorite year in music, 1999, my Bob Dylan favorites, the Waterboys favorites, whatever, all kinds of, it's not difficult for me to do it, and it was enjoyable when I did it, but no one seems to comment on those things any longer. So I've started to write video game reviews every now and then. And I don't know what you're after, but the deal is seen to it depends on everyone's interest. Sometimes you can listen to music, and sometimes it just gets too much. It gets to be too much and ruins your life cycle because one needs to plan one day and then the other. So that's not always happening, but having a good morning, no? Having a good morning. We will see. I will get back to you later on because there are things I would like to mention, as I said, about the Knuckles game, about 32X games, about the new import game. And you know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. There is one game here now, and it's known as Babel Symphony. So you will be able to look into that later on because I will be telling how it felt. I will be telling you how it felt to play it. Thank you. Take care and everything.